So for my 100th video, I thought I would do something a little bit different. And I've been promising to do this for a while, which is do a video on one of the biggest influences on me in terms of like my art and my drawing and my interests. So I thought I would talk to you about Bernie Wrightson and Berni Wrightson's Frankenstein, which is an absolutely terrific book. I first got this in 1989, saw it at my local comic shop, slapped it on my Christmas list, and got this, and then just spent the whole Christmas day just browsing through the amazing drawings in it.
As soon as you see the front cover, you know this is going to be something special. When you open it up and you see the creature for the first time, you know that the drawings and the illustrations in here are going to be something different to perhaps what you've seen before. You can obviously see the amount of detail that he's going for straight away with this lovely kind of hatched, kind of like stroked way of using like ink nib, ink brush. I mean, this is the 70s, so I'm guessing these are metal ink nibs and a bit of brushwork going on. But he uses costume as well and architecture to kind of set the kind of scene of the time that we're talking about. So you're talking about like what, the 1800s, and here you got this figure sat in the window and you can see those lovely hatched lines straight away. Really sumptuous, really, really detailed. And in this picture, you know, it's just a step up all of a sudden. This illustration has got so much detail in it and so many little extra things, including a little bit of a skull at the bottom there, kind of.
One of the reasons for doing such detailed kind of black and white work involving hatching, cross-hatching and so on was because he said that he wanted the piece to have an antique kind of feel, like a really old school feel. And so he wanted it to look kind of like woodcuts from the era, from like the 1700s, 1800s, that kind of black and white start way of illustrating a book.
So here you have that first classic illustration of the creation of the creature. So, you know, Baron von Frankenstein is leaning over this creature as it's sort of rising upwards, you know, beginning to have life, and it's got its eyeballs rolled back into its socket, and it looks kind of skull-like. And he's, you know, really going for that gothic kind of look. This is one of my favorite pictures in the entire book. It's a graveyard in snow, and what I love the most is the way that he basically just leaves the snow as just white paper and fills in the hatched lines underneath to be the shadow, sort of a use of negative space. I think it's absolutely terrific. A lot of the panels in the book, the illustrations, show a small figure in a large landscape. Why I like this panel is because it shows the monster, the creature, as huge, as though lightning's just struck and revealed him, and he's towering over Frankenstein, who looks scared. And this is another one of my favorite panels, as the monster, the creature, and Frankenstein face off against each other at presumably the top of a hill. You got that lovely kind of really stark black and white quality to the mountain beneath them.
Apparently the illustrator Bernie Wrightson did this in between paying jobs, so he'd be doing like work that he was getting paid for, and then he said he'd get like 3 days or 4 days where everything was paid for, his groceries, his bills and everything, and then he would launch into doing the book again, and he'd do like another page or whatever. And so he wasn't technically paid for doing this. He did this in between jobs, and I think it took him about 7 years to try and complete all of the pictures for the book.
Once the monster is created, you get a lot more panels where it just focuses solely on the monster, the creature. Here you've got the sort of classic scene where he's like driven out of a village by the villagers, you know, throwing stones and you know, waving pitchforks at him, but done in a terrific, non-cliched kind of way. And in the next illustration, you see the creature almost looking into the water, you know, on his own, quite melancholy, quite sad. Perhaps he's looking at his own reflection. Perhaps he's beginning to realize what he is. And again, the sort of black and white line work, you know, sort of directional strokes and, you know, really strong shadows.
One of the main reasons that I really, really love it is because of his depiction of the creature. I mean, we're not seeing some kind of Boris Karloff kind of creature, even though I like that, and that's iconic, you know, so he's got the flat top and the bolts and all of that. This is a much more humane creature, I think, and one that you can pity as the reader looking at the pictures, because they look kind of human, obviously not exactly human, but look quite human, so you can empathize with the creature, which is something that I'm not sure that you can do with something with a creature with like big bolts in its neck and like a flat top of hair.
Not only do I love the detail in this particular scene, you know, that grass is amazing, but the creature is reading books. He's sitting on top of a rock, actually reading through books. And I think, again, that amazing idea that the creature is this human who has a brain, who can think, who's not a mindless kind of monster is so strongly put across in the images here. Yet another one of my favorite illustrations in the book. I love this one. The composition is fantastic. I mean, when you look at it, you can see these diagonals of the branches, and then you've got verticals down from the tree. You've got a diagonal line where the man's shooting at the creature, and also the lines and all the shadow and shading on the creature's coat, all diagonal, loads of movement and motion lines. So you can really see sort of Bernie Wrightson's maybe comic book background here coming into play, both through the emotions that you see on the faces of the characters, heightened emotions, but also the directional movement lines. That's a terrific double page spread, absolutely brilliant, as the monster grabs him and the caption at the bottom says, "I will be with you on your wedding night," kind of a promise and a threat as he kind of just looms over Frankenstein. Yet more terrific composition on this one. Look at that white of the sail being used as a shape to kind of draw attention to Frankenstein. Look at all those lines going through the sky, swooshing away from you, almost like Dutch angles that you get in a movie, really off kilter and really angled to really make it more exciting as a scene. This one I really like as well, really quite stark blacks and whites as the figure is in despair, his head in his hands almost as he's just gripping onto that rope. And I've got to kind of make a bit of an admission here that I've never actually read the book. I've only ever looked at the pictures. I've just sat there and absorbed and reveled in the amazing artwork of this book, but I've never actually read it. So I think what I've got to do is sometime in the future try and make some time to actually read it, as well as just appreciating the amazing artwork by Bernie Wrightson here.
So I suppose the big question is, has it really influenced me? I mean, I'm going on about this and how much I love it, but does Bernie Wrightson's black and white artwork influence me in any way? So I thought the best thing to do is try and show you some of the pictures that I've done over the years, and hopefully you will see that there's a teeny weeny bit of Bernie Wrightson, coming through. Yeah, I'm channeling that a little bit in the word bits I'll show you here.
So I took some of the work out of my inks folder, which is where I keep all my loose bits of ink work. And the first piece here is a piece I did way back in the 90s. And this is supposed to be Icarus, obviously the wax and the feathers failing, and he falls into the sea. So this was one where I was using a brush. I was using a very fine brush and some black ink. But I think you can hopefully see in the kind of like hatching lines that I'm doing here quite a bit of that kind of Bernie Wrightson approach. In this one, this is a kind of welded figure, one of those metal figures that you see sometimes, like a sculpture. And I decided I wanted to do a drawing of this from a photo. And again, you can see those kind of fine hatched lines to kind of suggest tone and texture. Here we go, it's a very, very gothic one, so definitely influenced, I think, by Bernie Wrightson. So we've got bats and Dracula's castle. And with this one, I'm really going for quite an extreme perspective. I think it's 1 point perspective. The clouds swooshing over from left to right, influenced by some of the work that he does here. The influence is a little bit subtle. It's just some of the kind of hatching, crisscross hatching to achieve texture that you can see in the background here. So there you go, just like the kind of rocks and stones that you've just previously seen Bernie Wrightson drawing. This is Plo Koon from the Star Wars movies or Star Wars mythology. And this is just a black and white drawing, but I've used various hatching kind of effects that I think are borrowed from Bernie Wrightson. Moving into something different, this is a still life. And again, the hatching that I've used to do on some of the petals here, when you see the close-up, definite influence from the work that I saw in Frankenstein, stuck with me. Yeah, there's more there, there's textural effects. And then on to this, which is a piece that was inspired by Neil Gaiman's book, the Graveyard Book. And in it, he describes some ghouls. So I really was left with quite a strong mental picture in this one. So I decided I'd try and draw the three ghouls as they're approaching you and kind of looking out towards you, the viewer. And I think that one on the right-hand side, the kind of the skull guy in the kind of military getup, is a really big influence from Bernie Wrightson's kind of work. This was the second piece that I did from the Graveyard Book, and this is supposed to be like a grave with the kind of stone angel above it, and the kind of the tree that's been split by lightning. And I think some of the sky effects, I'm definitely influenced by him, and also again the hatching, especially on the gravestone here, right off that one that I love where the snow is lying on top of the gravestones. And even my more recent work here, where I've done flowers using the brush pen, I've done some videos that you might have seen where I've used this kind of technique. I think that kind of really strong hatching lines and sort of strong black areas to light areas to sort of trying to achieve grey is again influenced by the work in Bernie Wrightson's book, definitely.
So that pretty much wraps it up for a video. I've enjoyed making this one, and I've been, like I said, we need to make it for a while. If you liked it and you thought, oh yeah, can you do some more ones on kind of your influences, or perhaps some art books that you've got over the years that you think are absolutely tip top and really worth checking out, then if you think that I should do some more, then please leave a comment below, and I'll look into getting a shave and doing a couple more of these kind of sort of like me talking to camera, vloggy type weird videos. Thanks for watching.